Beneath all curious customs and beliefs, deeper than ecclesiastical creeds, more vital and basic than priestly rites, stands one impressive fact. Man and woman touch infinity. Our home is an immensity. We live, move, and have our being in an eternity. This magnificent assertion is our greatest affirmation.
I'm Debbie Rehar, your lay liturgist, and I welcome you to this worship service of the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. Because we cannot meet in the church building, we meet online during this time of physical distancing. Today, however, those who feel comfortable doing so will gather at 11:45 a.m. at Clover Lane for a farewell coffee hour with Reverend Johnson, since today is his final Sunday in the pulpit. If you have flowers to share, please bring them with you to Clover Lane. If you are a visitor or newcomer, I invite you to explore the website uchhbg.org to learn about the church and its many activities. To all who are watching or listening, I say, whoever you are, wherever you live, whomever you love, whatever you do for a living, you are welcome at the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg. I invite those of you at home to light a candle or whatever you choose to serve as your chalice at home. We light the chalice as a light to guide our going and coming, a symbol of the warmth of welcome, a flame to light up the world beyond what we already know, and a hearth around which we gather as a community. Please join in the reading of the Unison Affirmation. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak our truths in love, and to help one another.
All the colors, yes, the colors we see in the springtime with all of its flowers. All the colors, when the sunlight shines out through a rift in the cloud and it showers. All the colors, as a rainbow appears when a storm cloud is touched by the sun. All the colors are bound for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun. All the colors, yes, the colors of people parading on by with their banners. All the colors, yes, the colors of pennants and streamers and plumes and bandanas. All the colors, yes, the colors of people now taking their place in the sun. All the colors are bound for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun. All the colors, yes, the black and the white and the red and the brown and the yellow. All the colors of people who smile and shake hands and say hello. All the colors, yes, the colors of people who know that their freedom is won. All the colors are bound for the whole world around and for everyone under the sun.
Hello and good morning. My name is Corey and I serve as your Director of Religious Exploration. Today's story is titled A Plain and Simple Beauty. Let's begin our story. In the city of Prague, in the land of Czechoslovakia in 1923, there was a church. But the building did not look much like a church. It had no bells, no spires, no stained glass windows. It had no organ to make beautiful music. It didn't even have a piano. It had no carvings of wood or statues of stone. It had no candles or chalices. It had no flowers. But the church did have some things. It had 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. It had a door and a few windows. It had some wooden chairs. But that was all, plain and simple. Except the church also had people who came to it every Sunday. It had a minister, and his name was Norbert Chapek. He had been the minister at the Plain and Simple Church for 2 years. Every Sunday, Minister Chapek went to the church, and he spoke to the people while they listened, sitting quietly and still on those hard wooden chairs. When he was done speaking, the people talked a little bit among themselves, and then they went home. And that was all. No music, no candles, no food, not even coffee or donuts. That's right, no coffee. I know it's hard to imagine that. But springtime came to the city of Prague, and Norbert Chapek went out for a stroll. The rains had come, the birds were singing, and the flowers were blooming all over the land. The world was indeed beautiful. Then an idea came to him, simple and clear, plain as day. That next Sunday, he asked all the people in the church to bring a flower or a budding branch or even a twig. Each person was to bring one. What kind, they asked. What color? What size? You choose, he said. Each of you choose what you like. And so, on the next Sunday, which was the first day of summer, the people came with flowers of all different kinds and sizes, so many different colors. There were yellow daisies and red roses. There were white lilies and blue asters, dark-eyed pansies and light green leaves, pink and purple and orange and gold. Those were all the colors and more. Flowers filled the vases, and the church wasn't so plain and simple anymore. Minister Chapek spoke to the people while they listened, sitting quietly and still in those hard wooden chairs. He says, these flowers are like ourselves, different colors and different shapes and different sizes, each needing different kinds of care, but each beautiful, each important and special in its own way. When he was done speaking, the people talked a little bit among themselves, and then they each chose a different flower from the vases before they went home. And that was all. And it was beautiful, plain and simple as the day. Which leads me wondering, what kind of flower would you choose for a flower ceremony?
We know it in the mountain, reaching up to the sky. We know it in the ocean, swimming with life. We know it in the forest, rooted deep, growing high. We know it in the buzzing of the honeybee, names. Who we are, just a spark of nature's flames. We don't live on the earth after all. We are living earth. We know it in the glowing of the burning trees. We know it in the crashing waves of the rising seas. We know it in the fading of the birds' melodies. We know it in the bone-dry ridge where the river used to be. But do we know it in the emptiness within you and me? It's who we are, long before we're given names. Who we are, dust and dirt in human frames. Who we are, just a spark of nature's flames. We don't live on the earth after all. We are living earth. If we really knew who we belong to, what are the loads we wouldn't have to hold on to? If we really knew who we belong to, what would our hearts feel called to do? If we knew this truth, well, we might just break through to a deeper belonging as siblings in nature's womb. It's who we are, long before we're given names. Who we are, dust and dirt in human frames. Who we are, just a spark of nature's flames. We don't live on the earth after all. We are living earth.
The reading is a letter from Norbert Chapek to Samuel Atkins Elliott on July 20th, 1923, reporting on the first year of the Unitarian Church in Prague. We are trying to find new expressions of our religious life very slowly and carefully. Whereas the dedication of a child, weddings, and burials were kept rather close to the general Unitarian custom, we have made a new experiment in symbolizing our liberty and brotherhood in a service that was so powerful and impressive that I have never experienced anything like it. The most dry and rationalist members were moved, and many an eye brightened through tears. On that very Sunday, it was the last before the holidays. Everybody was supposed to bring a flower. In the middle of the big hall was a suitable table with a big vase where everybody put his flower. The sight of so many flowers was wonderful. And more of them were coming, solemnly yet joyfully and with full understanding of the meaning. In my sermon, I put emphasis upon the individual character of each member flower, on our liberty as a foundation of our fellowship. Then I emphasized our common cause, our belonging together as one spiritual community, as brethren. And when they go home, that each is to take one flower just as it comes, without making any distinction where it came from, who it represents, to confess that we accept one another as brothers and sisters without regard to class, race, or other distinction, acknowledging everybody as our friend who is human and wants to be good. All of these experiences, nobody dares to say anymore that we are so rationalistic as to have nothing for the heart.
Well, it isn't often that a minister gets to give their final sermon to a congregation. It happens when the time comes for the minister to go in another direction and the congregation to go in its own new direction. And we are reaching that time now that these 3 years of contract developmental ministry are drawing to a close, and you have called a new minister to join you in August. So this morning, I'm going to talk about the Flower Festival and its origins, because we're celebrating that today remotely as we did last year, with some videos, with pictures. We have flowers here, and sadly, there are only 3 or 4 of us in the building to pass them around. But next year, you will all be here together. So I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. One day in 1920, 3 children appeared at the Unitarian Church in Orange, New Jersey, to go to Sunday school. Their names were Gabriela, Radoslav, and Zora Chapek. They had a younger brother, Lubor, but he was still a baby. Their parents were Norbert and Maya Chapek. And Norbert had been a Baptist minister in what was then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which then, after the First World War, became a newly formed nation, Czechoslovakia. Now, Norbert had come to the United States in 1915 to serve as minister of a Baptist church in Newark, New Jersey. Now, Newark, like many older coastal cities, was a city of immigrants, and it had a large Slovak-speaking community. And that was where Norbert Chapek went to be a minister, the Slovak-speaking Baptists of Newark. And I have no doubt that there are still some Slovak-speaking Baptists in Newark, even if there's the Slovak language Baptist church anymore. While there, he became a leader of the Slovak community and served as president of the Newark branch of the Red Cross. Now, he had met a woman named Maya Aktovek after his wife, his wife, who was Gabriela, Radoslav, and Zora's birth mother, had died. Maya was also a Slovak immigrant. Now, Norbert had stopped serving as a Baptist minister as his religious thinking evolved toward Unitarianism. He instead was now working as an editor and as a psychologist. He lived with Maya and the children in Belleville, New Jersey, which is a town on the northern edge of Newark. As they prepared to return to Europe following the armistice, ending what we call the First World War, but in that time people referred to as the Great War, they moved to East Orange and attended the Unitarian Church in Orange. It wasn't his first encounter with Unitarians, but it was the first church he joined when he and Maya signed the membership book on January 21st, 1921. Through the minister of that church, the Reverend Walter Reed Hunt, they became acquainted with the president of the American Unitarian Association, the Reverend Dr. Samuel Atkins Elliott. Now, Elliott and Hunt were part of the New England establishment and thus had access to wealth. And Dr. Elliott raised the funds that allowed the Chapeks to return to the recently unified Czechoslovakia and establish Unitarianism there. They founded what they called the Free Religious Fellowship in the city of Prague. And to do so, they had financial support from both the American Unitarian Association and the British Unitarian Association. And the newly formed Czech National Church, a liberal Christian church, welcomed Unitarians with open arms. Not to be members of their church, but to be another liberal church along with the national church. While the Free Religious Fellowship would not have its own building until the 1930s, And that was a building obtained with financial assistance from both the British and American Unitarian associations. It quickly had members. Chapek was a magnetic speaker and an incredibly good organizer. And it had a message. It had a message that people who no longer believed the teachings they had learned in the Catholic or the Baptist or another Christian church could still have a religious life and a religious community. Chapek's central message, which is he had really preached first as a Baptist and then as a Unitarian, was that life can be good and fulfilling, and that each individual carried within him or herself great potential for moral goodness and personal fulfillment. It was a message that was both rational and spiritual, like the preaching the Chapeks had heard in New Jersey that had drawn them into actually joining Unitarianism. But because Chapek rejected rituals and symbols that carried the weight of beliefs he no longer held, I should mention that he went through several Christian denominations before declaring that he was a Unitarian, including the Catholics and the Baptists. But because he rejected symbols and rituals he no longer held the beliefs in, that carried the weight of beliefs he rejected, the rational seemed to some of his listeners and observers to be more evident than the spiritual. He did not, however, reject all rituals. In fact, he devised a ritual that Unitarian Universalists around the world practice to this day. Norbert Chapek described his process and progress in Prague in a report to Dr. Eliot in 1923. Now, remember, both the British and American Unitarian associations were paying the costs of him carrying out this mission to establish a church. So, as a dutiful grant receiver, he made reports to the grant makers, something some of us today in this congregation are quite familiar with. And you heard part of his description of the first flower festival from his report in 1923. Now, being stridently ex-Catholic, he did not call it a flower communion, as many UUs have become accustomed to calling it. But he went on to say about it, describing it when it first happened. The sight of so many flowers was wonderful, and more of them were coming. In the middle of the big hall was a suitable table with a big vase where everybody put his flower, some lady members helping to do it very nicely. And more of them were coming, solemnly, yet joyfully, with full understanding of the meaning. We had a common song. In my sermon, I put emphasis upon the individual character of each member flower, on our liberty as a foundation for our fellowship. Then I emphasized our common cause, our belonging together as one spiritual community, as brethren. And when they go home, that each is to take one flower just as it comes, without making any distinction where it comes from or who it represents. To confess that we accept each other as brothers and sisters without regard to race, class, or other distinction. Acknowledging everybody as our friend who is human and wants to be good. After all these experiences, nobody dares to say anymore that we are so rationalistic as to have nothing for the heart. When the Chapeks went home from East Orange, New Jersey to Prague, they carried with them the Unitarian religion that had given them meaning, strength, stimulation, inspiration, and a place for their children to develop as religious and ethical beings. The homeland to which they returned was a place where a new religion would face great challenges because there were ancient and well-established traditions in both Protestant and Catholic Christianity, and because secularization was already at work at the beginning of the 20th century. The secularization, however, created an opening for people who, like the Chapeks, knew that they no longer adhered to the faiths of their upbringing. Ex-Catholics, ex-Baptists, and people with a variety of experiences, backgrounds, and current beliefs joined the Free Religious Fellowship. Norbert and Maya Chapek and those joining their new fellowship did not believe that a ritual or sacrament could convey grace or ensure salvation. But they recognized that rituals are a part of life, that rituals convey meaning, that rituals bind people together. Even the most intellectual religions and the most rationalistic individuals have rituals. Rituals bind people together in community. They express values and beliefs that otherwise might take hundreds, if not thousands, of words to convey and explain. The Chapeks saw the need for new rituals. And the most original, enduring of these was what they called the Flower Festival, which Unitarian Universalists today typically call Flower Communion. Chapek preferred the term festival because it did not carry the theological baggage of the word communion, a well-established ritual in Protestantism and one of the sacraments of Catholicism. But why even celebrate a flower festival of all things? Why flowers? Many years later, Maya Chapek, who had since been ordained as a minister herself, wrote, and here I quote her, "Because in the name of a flower or flowers, no wars were waged, as was the case with the cross or the chalice. No wars had been waged in the name of the flower, and so flowers could be a symbol of peace." Norbert and Maya Chapek abhorred war, but they were not pacifists. Living in the United States during the First World War, Norbert spoke in movie theaters to rally support for American entry into that war. As the Second World War loomed, following the Munich Pact in 1938, Maya prepared to go to the United States to rally support to protect Czechoslovakia from Nazi occupation and to raise funds for joint refugee relief efforts by the Unitarians and the Quakers who were working together on these. She left in February 1939 and was not to return to her homeland until after the war's end. And when she left, she did not know it, but she would never see her husband again. On March 28th, 1941, Norbert and his now adult daughter, Zora, were arrested for the crime of listening to foreign news broadcasts on a shortwave radio. They were also charged with treason. The treason charges were dropped, but both were sentenced to short prison terms for the crime of listening to foreign news broadcasts. Zora was released at the end of her term, but her father was not. He was sent to the concentration camp at Dachau, where he was executed on October 12, 1942. Now, Norbert Chapek was utterly committed to what he called brotherhood and what today we might call human fellowship, or even call human solidarity. And this is the emphasis at the heart of the Flower Festival. To quote him again, "And when they go home, each is to take one flower just as it comes, without making any distinction where it comes from or who it represents. To confess that we accept each other and as brothers and sisters without regard to race, class, or other distinction. And so, when you go home today, now I'm realizing most of you are watching this service at home, but as you transition from watching this service to everyday home life, what will you take with you? Well, you won't physically be carrying a flower since you're not here, but some of you will join us after the service and will be able to get a flower then, exchange flowers then. But what else? What does a flower remind you of? Well, when you go home today, I hope you will take with you a sense of the brotherhood and sisterhood of all humanity, the solidarity of each human being with every other human being in the living of fulfilling lives and in the struggles for peace, freedom, and justice. This general solidarity is embedded in this congregation. When you go home today, I hope that you will carry with you the warmth and love of the community, where each may share his or her individual spiritual journey with other seekers of truth and spiritual fulfillment. When you go home today, I hope that you will carry with you the realization that one church can make a difference. 10 years before joining the Unitarian Church in Orange, New Jersey, Norbert Čapek and Thomas Masaryk, a fellow Czech and a fellow Unitarian, sought the interest of the American Unitarian Association in service for Czechoslovakia. And if you know all this history, and I don't expect all of you do, Masaryk was the first post-World War I president of a united Czechoslovakia. And he had also, like Čapek, lived in the United States for many years, and his wife was a woman who had grown up in the Brooklyn Unitarian Church. Well, they had approached the American Unitarian Association to go in service to Czechoslovakia, and they were rebuffed. But it was how the little church in New Jersey treated him and his family that renewed Čapek's enthusiasm for Unitarianism and its possibilities in his homeland. In a farewell speech to that church before returning to Europe, he declared that he, quote, expected to find clear heads free from superstition and be satisfied with that. But then he went on to say, I found not only clear heads, but warm hearts too. But above all, I liked that personal touch of a soul that has a vision. It is the heart of religion in the heart of this congregation. And when you go home today, what will you carry with you? I hope that you will carry with you, even though it's through this screen, the personal touch of a soul that has a vision, whether it comes from me or from Debbie Reihart or for any number of people in this congregation. But everyone in this congregation has a soul with a vision, the heart of religion, in the heart of this congregation. The vision of this church changes individuals to make their lives better, and the vision of this church can change the world. You can change the world. Blessed be, amen.
As you are separated and sitting in your own homes today, the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg is still a freely gathered church of free people. The church is created, sustained, and supported by you. Ministry continues even when the building is closed. During the month of June, we share our offering with the Dauphin County Library System, which supports the greater Harrisburg area, providing books, information, services, and countless resources at no cost to the community. The library is a place to explore, imagine, and learn, with access to free multimedia resources and classes, workshops, and programs. UCH has an opportunity to directly benefit the children of Harrisburg and connect kids with books by sharing our plate to help keep the Read at Home project open book alive in our community. Our Offertory will help the library distribute thousands of free books to children each year. Even in the age of iPhones and e-readers, the number of books in a child's home is a key predictor of his or her future success in school and life. Project Open Books strives to give children books that they can call their own, spark a love of reading at an early age, open children and their families to the world of opportunities that exists for them at the library, meet children where they are when they cannot come to the library, and launch literacy and a lifelong love of learning. UCH's Share the Plate donation this month will help the library in its quest to connect kids with books. Please see the link in the email you received with today's service or visit uchbg.org to donate. Your financial support and commitment matter. Please be generous.
Now, I invite you, if you have a flower or a plant close by, that you hold it if you can, or look at it, and also look at the screen and join me together in the Unison Reading for the dedication of flowers. This is a dedication that was written by Norbert Chapek. Infinite Spirit of life, we ask thy blessing on these messengers of fellowship and love. May they remind us, amid diversities of knowledge and of gifts, to be one in desire and affection and devotion to thy holy will. May they also remind us of the value of comradeship, of doing and sharing alike. May we cherish friendship as one of the most precious gifts. May we not let awareness of another's talents discourage us or sully our relationship, but may we realize that whatever we can do, great or small, the efforts of all of us are needed to do thy work in this world. Amen. Blessed be.
You can give from deep has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
I will close the service with words I've used many times before, but which I think are equally appropriate for closing a period of ministry. Of many times in this pulpit, probably 100 or so over 3 years, and many other times together in special services, in meetings, in activities outside and around the building and in the community. For what we have done together, what we've achieved together, what we have fallen short on, and what we continue to hope for the Unitarian Church of Harrisburg and the community and people that it serves. From the book of Philippians, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honorable, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. And let us go forth thinking on these things. Amen. Blessed be.
Peace has tried.